NightMerica is an independently produced podcast. If you like what we're doing, please consider supporting us at patreon.com/NightMerica. And please tell your friends about us.
Welcome to NightMerica, a podcast that takes you on a tour of the abnormal, paranormal, weirdly true, and truly weird in every corner across this nation. Because, to paraphrase Ray Parker Jr., whether it's ghosts, aliens, monsters, or monstrous humans, there's something strange in your neighborhoods. Episode 27, Schools and the Education of the Unexplained. I haven't done that. I didn't put much effort into that. That was like, I phoned in that one.
Yeah, there you go. That's better.
Better, yeah. Anyhow, yeah. Hi, everyone. I'm Aaron Sagers, your co-host for NightMerica, Travel Channel's Paranormal Caught on Camera and other paranormal places. And as always, joined by Britt. Are you gonna jump in there?
I don't know. You always harass me for jumping in with you, so I was just going to let you have your moment. Hi, guys. I'm Britt.
I don't think I harass you. I just never know when you're going to be like, hey, this is Britt. Anyhow, Britt and Aaron. Aaron and Britt. A-B, B-A. And ABBA.
ABBA. Oh, my God.
Yeah.
Love ABBA.
So, Marmaduke, and all that. What? Don't they sing the song called Marmaduke?
I don't know about Marmaduke, but I know Waterloo.
Oh, yeah.
Were you thinking it goes Marmaduke?
So it's funny because there are things in my brain that I know, oh my gosh, this is reaching like Mandela levels of weirdness. First off, let me say that I know that the ABBA song is Waterloo, but there are things that occupy a space in my brain that are incorrect. And normally my brain is like, all right, Aaron, don't say the incorrect one because we know the difference. But then every so often they make it out into the public sphere. Sort of like, today I was singing the Creedence Clearwater revival song, Bad Moon on the Rise, and I always sing the incorrect lyric intentionally. There's a bathroom on the right instead of the Bad Moon on the Rise. But
I haven't heard
anyhow, so Marmaduke versus Waterloo is something I used to sing because I liked the comic strip Marmaduke as a kid. So
that's so funny.
Marmaduke. But I won't sing any more of that. But let me add an extra level of weirdness. Since this is an audio medium, no one can see this, but I'm going to get Britt's reaction when I show what
Are you drinking Waterloo soda? Oh my God, that's so creepy.
And I'm drinking a can of Waterloo soda, and let me say, this is the first time I've ever bought Waterloo soda. Never heard of it. I'm normally a LaCroix guy because that's just what's easiest to get at my convenience store, and it's a great product in case the fine people at LaCroix want to sponsor this podcast. But if they
Waterloo.
don't, the fine people at Waterloo, I'll even give a.
Or what else is there? Bubbly.
Ew. That was like refreshing and effervescent Waterloo. Anyhow, that's so weird, isn't it?
That is weird.
All these different
synchronicity.
Synchronicity. All these things happening together. Anyhow, so yeah, not Marmaduke, but Waterloo. But we are ABBA or BA, which would kind of connect with our second school episode. We did colleges last week, and now we're doing just schools. Not the School of Hard Knocks.
Where I attended.
Have you ever seen that on, I don't know if you would have seen it, but I've seen on certain dating profiles when people list a school, they'll list the School of Hard Knocks.
Oh, barf.
Yeah, I would agree with that one. It's kind of barfy.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I agree. It's kind of barfy. No, but hey, any subscribers out there that put School of Hard Knocks on their dating profiles, thanks for listening. And not you specifically, not barfing at you specifically.
No.
Look, we can't afford to be shedding any listeners, We gotta keep
and if
them
you
together.
didn't go to school too, that's cool with us. Who are we to judge?
I certainly I taught at NYU. I taught journalism at NYU, and I even said to some of my students, like, you don't necessarily have to be here. Probably shouldn't say that to any NYU administrator or whatever that might happen upon this podcast, but
Or if
like,
NYU
it's
wants to
not,
sponsor us.
yeah, or NYU. And, the fierce sponsor battle between Waterloo and NYU begins now.
Honestly, I
Anyhow,
would take Waterloo.
I will take. Really? How about we just take the money that's going to be offered to our podcast? Let's not get. Let's. I don't think we're big enough to get that. You know, specific about the money that we're taking or not.
I guess so.
So yeah,
Anyway.
Waterloo, NYU. Anyhow, but yeah, I would tell my students that this may not be. Don't feel like you just have to be here because you need to go to college. It's not for everybody. And
No.
and honestly, if I had a child right now, I think I would probably want them to learn some sort of recession-proof skill or apocalypse-proof skill,
Real
such
talk.
as mechanics, auto, like in the mechanic trade, auto mechanics, electrical trade,
Any sort of engineer,
plumbing, plumbing.
plumbing.
People are always going to be pooping. I mean,
Yeah.
at least for the foreseeable future until technology allows us to not. I think bidet installers
Yeah.
of the world.
I
I think
wish
that
I could have a bidet. Like, I grew up with a bidet. I never used it.
really, you never
Yeah.
used it.
We never used it. I think we had 2 bidets in our apartment in Paris. I never used it.
Wow, that's
Freaked me
fancy.
out.
You're a two bidet family. That's swanky. What do you mean it freaks you out? It's just pressure
So
washing your bum.
it was an old apartment. So it wasn't like these new nice bidets like that tushy one that you always see advertised on your Instagram that like shoots
And
the
on my
water up.
and on podcast, they
Yes.
advertise heavily on podcasts. So we're leaning
It's
into bidet money
Yeah.
right now.
It wasn't like these that are really nice and high tech. It was old. So it was basically just like there was the toilet, and then next to the toilet was another toilet.
Yeah,
But you didn't go in it. You just like ran the faucet in it and like splashed it up.
you squat down and then you just
Yeah, but these new tushy ones are so nice it like shoots water so you don't have to get all up in the business.
Well, you're still literally getting up in the business
I
because
know,
that's the
but
point of it.
just with a
You're
machine and
clearing
not with
out
your
the business.
hands. Ew.
And I have, yeah, so when I've, in my travels, I've seen sort of the separate bidet next to the toilet.
Mm-hmm.
It's
That's
kind
what I
of awkward
had.
because you got to get off the toilet and then
That's what we
go to the
had.
bidet. But it's normally right
See?
there. It's not like yeah, I know, but it's not like you're running to the next room. It's just a gentle, switching positions. But I will say that the high-tech bidets, look, when I was in Japan, I was spoiled with all the high-tech bidets
Yes.
that would talk to you and do like a, sort of a water show with different lights and everything, maybe. And this was telling because even when I was traveling around the country quite a bit and went to this convenience store in the middle of nowhere and I had to use their toilet, and even that had a nice bidet. And it was then that I realized that we're just pooping all wrong in this country. We're just doing it
We
all wrong.
are. The waste. I mean, you know me. I am like eco person, garbage monitor. Like the waste that is produced in this country is insane. So like I would love to have a bidet that's like a
Paper
nice
waste,
high-tech bidet. Yeah.
not just poop waste, because that's a different kind of waste.
Totally. But like paper waste, plates, utensils. I won't
And
get started.
yeah, well, toilet paper you need to waste, and you're not really going to be making use of that
But if
twice.
you
But
have a bidet, you can buy reusable toilet paper.
I don't know that I'd go for that. But if you had a bidet, you would be using less toilet
Yes,
paper.
you would.
I really don't. I don't know if I'm at the level of, look, I am very much all about the environment, but I don't think I'm at the level of environmental awareness that I'm going to be getting reusable. It's rags. It's poopy rags. that you're proposing.
Yeah.
Reusable toilet paper?
Yeah.
Yeah, no. I mean, really, if you came over to my house and I'm like, oh, hey, if you need to go to the bathroom, here's the stack of rags. Wouldn't you think, well, how well were these washed? These poopy rags, these
Well, yeah, it's not
reusable
for
toilet
like a
paper.
common bathroom, it's for like your private bathroom.
Don't call me a commoner. The
Also, asking for a bidet that has like a light show is a lot to ask for when the bathroom at your apartment, you like have to really slam the door just right for it to
Sure.
shut at all. How many times have I been there where it flies open while I'm in there?
I don't know about that, but I think you're just closing it wrong. It's just it's got personality. I close it just fine. But that said, I'm not saying I'm demanding a fancy bidet. I'm just saying I've experienced it. But the revealing part was the fact that even when I was in a gas station, it was a good bidet. All I'm saying is we're pooping wrong in this country. Bidet all the way. And Tushy, you should be a sponsor for this podcast along with Waterloo and maybe NYU. And they all kind of rhyme. They all work
They
together. So,
do. They do.
but
So
they're not going
great.
to sponsor us if we don't actually have something to talk about other
No,
than bidet, which I think we've made a compelling argument for the
we
bidets.
have.
But so the before we get into the topic, yes, there is a topic. Let's get to the news. What's happening for you and the weird news this week?
I love my weird news this week. So I found the obituary of a woman who is now my icon. You guys might have seen it. If not, I'll post it to our Instagram. Her name is Holly Blair, and she was obsessed with Halloween, and she passed away on August 17th. I wish I got to know her because her obituary starts out: Holly Blair exploded into glitter and bats on August 17th. She's survived by 4 spoiled cats, 2 stinky dogs, 3 bad birds, a turtle, and an utterly useless frog named Fred. I mean, this woman is incredible. It also goes on to say her future plans include drinking beer with Terry Pratchett and flying across the moon on a broomstick on Halloween. She has also promised to communicate with us in form from the beyond using her cockatiel. We
Nice.
asked that everyone carve extra jack o' lanterns on Halloween this year in her honor. All hail the Wicked Witch of Juniper Road.
I think we should. I support that. That's a great obit.
It's so great. She's so cool. It was published in the Idaho Mountain Express. And the picture they use, I mean, she couldn't look any cooler. She looks like a mix of Stevie Nicks and the hat from Dr. Sleep.
Oh,
So,
sweet.
yeah, she's just a rock star.
Yeah. How old was she again?
It doesn't say. A woman never reveals her age,
Right.
especially if you're a
Even in
witch, because
death.
she could have been like 500.
True. I would be proud of that though. I'd be
Yeah.
touting that. Well, my news story is that's a great news story. That's quite heartening. It reminds me of I just read a obit the other day of someone in the Florida Keys that sounded like a really cool eccentric character. Not a witch, but someone that makes you think, man, I'm so sad that this person has shuffled off their mortal coil and gone on to somewhere, possibly, hopefully. Wish I had been able to meet this person in life and hung out with them because I bet they would have just been a riot. But, some things don't quite die, they stick around. And that's why, for my news topic, we're talking about zombie cicadas. That's right. So this is a couple weeks old, but I think it's still something we need to pay attention to. And researchers discovered a new population of cicadas that are being brutally infected by a parasitic fungus that controls their minds and forces them to infect other insects. Now, this comes from CNN, by the way. The parasite, the fungus, parasitic fungus, is called Massospora, and it's described as a psychedelic fungus which contains chemicals such as those found in hallucinogenic mushrooms. And so the West Virginia University, which is part of this study, said that the fungus results in a disturbing display of bee horror movie proportions. Now you might be wondering, Mesospora, what makes it so bad to make it life and afterlife bad for these cicadas to turn them into zombie cicadas? Well, so glad you asked. The Mesospora spores, that's fun to say, it eats away at the cicada's abdomen and butt and genitals.
Ooh.
So, and then don't laugh at the pain of cicadas getting their butt, genitals, and abdomen eaten away. That's a rough
That's a
Monday.
bad way to go.
Yeah, that's a bad Monday right there. Anyhow, so what the abdomen, butt, and genitals are then replaced with fungal spores that are used to transmit the fungus to other cicadas. And the study co-author Brian Lovett said from there, the fungal abdomen will just slowly wear away like an eraser on a pencil, which is
Mm.
such a simple description, but just evocative. It's quite disgusting.
Yeah.
And so the West Virginia University researchers who discovered this thing, they've been studying it for a while. What makes it kind of difficult to study these things, though, is cicadas have a very long life cycle of upwards of 17 years, and they can live underground and then pop back up a decade later. So it's hard to determine how long these spores has been infecting these poor cicadas. But now, okay, so zombie cicadas, parasitic, fungal, Mesospora, eats away as their butt genitals. Okay, that sucks. But the cicadas carry on as if nothing has happened, and this is probably due to the fungus, which manipulates the insect's behaviors and makes them oblivious to this sickness. Now, that's especially bad for the other cicadas that they're hanging around with, because after even like a third of their body, even after a third of their body has fallen off, they continue just going about
Oh
life,
my
but
God.
that means they also continue mating. Now, this is bad.
Wait, but how? They don't have genitals.
No, because the fungus is taking the place of their genitals. So, what happens is even though the cicadas cannot actually get it on, they still try to. And I love this line here because it says, and I'm going to read this one, that even though infected cicadas lose their ability to mate, their when their backsides become fungal plugs, they still attempt to mate and then sexually transmit the fungus to healthy cicadas.
Oh my God.
And the parasite even manipulates these dying male cicadas into flicking their wings to imitate the mating invitation.
Oh my
Imitate,
God.
and no, this is even weirder and cooler. It manipulates male cicadas to flick their wings to imitate the female mating invitation. So not only are these cicadas infecting the opposite sex, it also lures in the same sex to transmit the disease to them. So they imitate females to invite other male cicadas.
Oh my God.
And yeah, and then sometimes they're just walking around on branches, and as they walk around, because again, their guts have just been eaten away, they're just rubbing the spores all over like a branch or whatnot. And
Ew.
and I love it when scientists are being gruesome and funny because they even said, one of the scientists here says that we call them flying salt shakers of death because they basically spread the fungus the way salt would come out of a shaker that's tipped upside down. So, you know,
Ew.
this isn't the only time that there's a lot of stories of zombie insects in the animal kingdom. So this is not the first. And thankfully these things are not so far passing on
To
to
humans.
humans. So, you
Yeah,
know,
we've had enough in 2020. Make it stop.
yeah, this is pretty grody stuff. So
Yeah.
anyhow, there's the zombie cicadas. So let's hear from, actually, let's do a topic and then we'll get to an ad. So we're going to talk about schools. We talked about colleges and weird stuff happening at schools. Were there, when you were a kid, any school that you went to, not just college, but were there like lore, urban legends, and things that were being passed around at your school about, I don't know, maybe a teacher being a murderer, or someone that lived in a crazy house down the road, or anything like that?
Not really. Like, pretty uneventful. The main school I went to growing up in Paris, everyone moved like every 2 years or so. So there wasn't like people to stick around to pass on lore in that way.
Yeah,
And then coming back to America, I mean, not really. There's always those rumors of like, oh, some teacher is, sleeping with a student or whatever. But like, most of the
which is just
time,
nasty.
it's
That's a
not
mean,
true. It's mean. It ruins someone's career.
yeah, and
So,
it labels someone, it slut shames someone else. So,
exactly. I did have a floral design teacher get caught. He got caught in a motel soliciting some activities. So that was pretty
like
hilarious when it got
shuffleboard,
busted. No,
canasta,
like no, you know what I mean.
competitive Scrabble.
You know what I'm saying. He was like caught soliciting uh, acts of service.
Oh, random acts of service.
Stop. You know what I'm saying. So that came out after we graduated, and so all of us cracked up because he was like this old dude. But no, that's all the excitement in my school. What about you?
Trying to think. I don't think anything too salacious other than, I mean, yes, there were some of those kind of scandalous type of accusations about some students or teachers or
Mm-hmm.
whatnot. I seem to remember there were stories about like maybe teachers that were known to be especially severe, that they were uh, probably murderers or something silly
Oh,
like that.
the Catholic school I went to, actually, there was a nun who taught math for like beginner's math, which is always what I was in, who was really mean and really terrifying. And there was the rumor that she had been struck by lightning twice.
Okay.
I don't know if that's true.
I had a teacher that was struck by lightning, but he was awesome. Mr. Carpenito, Mr. C.
It's a great name, Carpenito.
Yeah, Mr. C. He's one of those. He was a great teacher. I do recall when I was a little kid, there was this like scholastic book or whatever about a teacher that had a class full of like terrible students, and then she got sick or whatever and went away, and then the substitute teacher that came in was a witch and was tormenting these children and everything. And then I think at the end of the book, spoiler guys, the real teacher comes back and they're so appreciative of the real teacher. And then in the final frame or final page of the book, it turns out that it was a real teacher posing as a witch the whole time.
Oh my God. That's like
Yeah.
a real mind game for a child.
Yeah, it was a great book. Anyhow, so let's dive into the stories. But first, let's hear from our first sponsor. Think things are bad now? Well, it could be worse. Don't believe me? Just read Dead Run, the new sci-fi thriller from author Mike Maddox. A mysterious force is taking control of people's bodies and making them run to stay alive. And if you can't keep running, now this is the ad copy, so I'm reading the ad copy because it says if you can't keep running, you blow up like spaghetti left in the microwave too long. It's not a good scene. It's a very messy situation.
And it's got to have marinara sauce because then it kind of looks like blood.
Right. And the pasta itself would be sort of look like viscera.
Ew.
And except in a microwave, but at least in a microwave, you're contained. The explosion is contained.
Yeah.
It's a messy microwave to clean up. But if you're running down the road and you can't run anymore, just splat. And then you're all over your friends and the other
Ew.
apocalyptic pals.
Ew,
who
do
are
not
nearby.
splat on me.
And in an apocalypse, you don't have easy access to soap, water. I
Mm-mm.
don't even know if you can stop running long enough to like shampoo and bathe after
Ew.
your friend, your pal is just blown up on you. Anyhow, I mean, this is really, I think, selling the book. Anyhow, the story follows a group of weary travelers as they make their way through a hellish landscape where there's only one rule: run or die. This is Dead Run, and other than being chilling and scary, it will also perhaps inspire you to eat the right kind of carbs and jog every day just in case this apocalypse hits. So check it out. It's available exclusively on Amazon Kindle. It's only like $3. It's well worth your $3. And read Dead Run by Mike Maddox on Amazon Kindle. And we're back. So I don't know what story you're going to tell, and I'm enthralled. I'm excited. I'm intrigued. I'm ready to go. I'm getting licked by a dog who clearly wants my attention and hoping she just settles down. So, why don't you dive in with the story, and I will try to calm down the dog.
Yeah, there are a lot of scandalous stories that take place in high schools or just any school. Um, a lot I don't want to get into because I don't like when they involve kids in an inappropriate manner. So I landed a gold mine with this story. So let's head on down to Southeast Texas, Channelview to be exact. Wanda Holloway is 37, and she's the mother of Shayna Harper, who she had with her first husband. Wanda is like a statement maker in town. She was a secretary, and people in the neighborhood said she was very much like a keeping up with the Joneses kind of person, wanting the next best thing for her, her daughter. And Channelview, where they lived, was like a really modest working class neighborhood. The school her daughter attended was named after a beloved janitor. Like it wasn't a bougie C and B scene kind of place, but that's how Wanda liked to live her life. She was raised on the tough side of Channelview. Her mom worked at the high school cafeteria. Her dad was at a concrete plant. And because of this, she felt like she was really looked down upon by all of her fellow students. Her parents were also super conservative and religious to the point where her dad even started his own church when he disagreed with someone in his old church, which is a very religious statement to make, I guess, to start your own church. Wanda desperately wanted to be a cheerleader, but with her dad's belief, there was no way he was ever going to let her wear the uniform or even try out. So she kind of gave up on her dream. She thought cheerleading would like get her out of Channelview and give her this new life that she kind of felt she deserved, but she gave up on that. And at 18, she married her first husband, Tony. They had their two kids, Shane and Shayna. They aren't twins. Feels like an interesting name choice.
It's I've heard of this kind of thing in the South and Texas and things like that.
Yeah. So they have their two kids, and then they end up divorcing a few years later in 1980. Wanda then goes on to marry a wealthy man in the area, get a girl. Sadly, it didn't work out. She tried to get back with Tony, her first husband. He's like, yeah, no, this didn't work out in the beginning, so we're not doing this again. And then finally, she marries a man named C.D. Holloway, who was 20 years older than her and had his own oil field servicing company. So he was quite wealthy. She's finally settling into the life that she wants. She has a personal plane with him, has her new dream car, but she's still living in a very modest house in Channelview. And just around the corner from her house is a woman named Verna Heath, who is the mom to a girl named Amber, who is the same age as Shayna, Wanda's daughter. I know it was a lot of names just then. Amber and Shayna both go to the same school. And Verna was an accomplished baton twirler growing up. So, like the girls in front of the band that spins the baton and
I know what baton twirlers
Well, in
were.
case people don't, like it's in Miss Congeniality where like she is the baton twirler and then it bursts into flames and it's like real scandalous. It's a cute moment in the movie.
I think my sister was a baton twirler. Well, she was a ballet dancer and I think a baton twirler as well. So,
Oh yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
It's a hard
So
thing to do.
I totally agree.
So,
So, yeah. Go on.
yeah.
Sorry.
It was said that both Verna and Wanda were the type of moms who would give 150% for their kids. So both of their daughters attended alpha gymnastics to become top tier cheerleaders. These girls were also really strong academically and well liked. They were just good people. Wanda controlled her daughter, though. She got her private cheerleading lessons to kind of give her a leg up, pushed her into like random modeling jobs, including like having her model at the mall at some point, and then would dress them in matching mother daughter outfits.
Ugh, creepy.
In high school.
Yeah, that's creepy.
It's one thing if like it's a baby, it's a whole nother if you're in high school. The trouble between these two families began in 1989 when Wanda pulled Shayna out of the private Christian school to attend public school so she could compete for a spot in the cheerleading squad. What she didn't realize, though, was that Verna actually received special permission for Amber to try out, even though she was still attending the private school and didn't plan on transferring unless she made the squad. There were 2 spots and 3 competitors, and Shayna lost to Amber. What's really crazy to me, and I hope they still don't do this because it seems very problematic for girls' egos, is that they didn't just audition to the coaches. They also did it like a popularity contest among students where students would vote for who their cheerleader would be. Which, like, I get class elections, but that's teaching politics. This just feels like a popularity contest.
Yeah, I mean, which also class elections are, but
They
I understand
are.
what you're saying. Yeah, it just takes on very quickly, becomes a whole nasty situation.
Exactly. Well, Wanda is devastated that Shayna doesn't get in. Honestly, she's taking it way harder than Shayna ever did. And the next year, Wanda makes it super personal by making these rulers that say like Shayna for whatever cheerleading position it was, to hand out at school that were personalized. But what she didn't factor in was that this is not allowed. You are not allowed to give things out. You can make posters, you can talk amongst your neighbors, network, but you're not allowed to give things out as a gift, which is very smart. In this modest neighborhood, families aren't putting all these expenses into it. But Wanda did. And then Shayna got disqualified because this is not allowed. So what does
Well,
Wanda
at least she was disqualified for it, like instead of like just getting away with it and winning.
True. But this is a true crime story. So what does Wanda do when her daughter gets disqualified? She goes to her ex-brother-in-law, Shayna's uncle Terry, and asks him to take 2 people out for her, meaning Verna and Amber.
For ice cream?
For cheerleading.
I mean, but for miniature golf?
No, like to take 2 people out.
For
Mafia
like a
style.
nice ride?
Oh, Aaron, you know what I'm saying. Take 2 people out.
So not for ice cream.
No. Over cheerleading. That's just psycho. And she sets it up to Terry like, how much do you love your niece? Like, don't you love your niece? Don't you want what's best for her? It's so creepy. I love my niece, but I would never do anything like that. So Terry said no, because the man's got ethics. And he, didn't want to do that to a girl, especially, is like what he kept saying. But Wanda pushed. So uncomfortable, Terry went to his brother, Wanda's ex-husband, and they together went to the cops. And Terry was required to wear a wire. He recorded all of his conversations with Wanda where she would haggle over price. And then they were somewhere, I think at a mall, and they agreed to do like the money drop. And instead of paying in cash, Wanda took out her diamond earrings and passed them to Terry as payment. And so then the police arrest her because now she has paid someone to kill someone for her. And they go and they tell Verna, who was supposed to be the victim of this crime. And Verna just went numb. I mean, can you imagine, like, you're living in this small, like, working class town, and all of a sudden you're told by the police, like, someone wants to kill you and your daughter over cheerleading? Like, it's just insane.
Well, it does sound a lot like, was it Drop Dead Gorgeous? The movie, I think it's Drop Dead Gorgeous. But yeah, I mean, it sounds like something out of a like a dark comedy or like a Roger Waters type of movie. But yeah, but
Yeah.
I believe it. Based on people that put their kids through pageants and whatnot, and
Mm-hmm.
uh, yeah, I'm not entirely surprised.
Yeah. It's funny you say that. It was actually made into an HBO movie in 1993. Holly Hunter plays Wanda Holloway.
Okay.
It's called The Positively True Adventures of the Alleged Texas Cheerleader Murdering Mom. It's
Ooh.
a long
Oh yeah,
title.
I've heard of that. I didn't watch it, but I've heard of that.
Yeah. So in 1991, it's not alleged because she was convicted of solicitation of capital murder. But what's crazy is that it was overturned because one of the jurors was on probation for a drug felony and shouldn't have been allowed to serve as a juror, but was let in anyway. So then it goes to a second trial, and in that, she decides to plead no contest. She's convicted to serve 10 years in prison and pay the victims $150,000. But because of good behavior, she was released 6 months later and did the rest of her sentence on probation and was charged 1,000 community service hours, which is basically 20 hours a week for a year, which is a part-time job. So she attempted to murder a high school girl and her mother and got a slap on the wrist, which
So
is
I have
fascinating.
questions.
Yeah.
How much were the earrings appraised for? Like how much?
$5,000.
5,000. I wonder if it still would have counted as a payment if they ended up being fake, if they were like cubic zirconium earrings.
Oh, that's
I
a
mean, I'm
good
sure
point.
it still counts as payment because you're still exchanging something. I'm just being
Yeah.
glib about it. But and then the other thing is, do you think Terry, the brother-in-law or the uncle or whatever, do you think Terry would have been convinced if she tried to recruit him with a clever cheer? Like HITMAN, 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 hitman. Because, if it's one thing I've learned through many painful pep rallies at schools, which I always hated, supposedly that and Spirit Day are supposed to get you excited
Hyped
and
up.
hyped up for the community, athletics and all that, and ready to go. So I think had she given a good cheer, a clever cheer, she would have maybe convinced Terry. And that's really the lesson that we take
Perhaps.
away from here is if you're
It
trying
is.
to hire a hitman, just come up with like, a clever cheer or a limerick maybe,
Oh, a
or
limerick could
clever
be good.
marketing. Yeah, I'd be
I
like,
mean,
well,
marketing is everything.
not really into murder, but this is a very compelling argument, and it's clever and it rhymes. Well, that's disturbing, and I'm glad. I will have to say, like, I know this is one half true crime, but I am glad that we didn't get too. I mean, it's dark. It's
It's
dark, but at
dark,
least it's
but
not
no
like
one died.
Yeah, and it's especially when you're talking about kids, it's
Yeah, I couldn't do that.
especially bleak. So,
Yeah.
hey, even though terrible things happen, overall people walked away and somehow even
Yep.
walked out of jail after like no
6
time.
months.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, well, before we dive into this next story on the paranormal portion,
Parshin.
paranormal portion. Welcome to NightMerica, y'all. We're gonna hear from another sponsor. Is Brooklyn one of the most haunted places in America? It's a worthwhile question. And this podcast happens to be brought to you in part by Brooklyn's one and only mobile ghost tour, Madame Morbid Trolley Tours, which is the official haunted tour of NightMerica. So, we've talked about this before. Madame Morbid, it's a Victorian-era funeral-inspired trolley, which just sounds like a great way to cruise around town, don't you think?
The only way I want to cruise around town.
The only way. See, you're making a bold claim. You're just planting a flag in only if it's not if it's not Victorian-era funeral-inspired trolley, it's
Why bother?
It's crap, according to Britt. Well, then that's why you should go on a Madame Morbid trolley tour. First chance you get, because it is the only way to cruise around Brooklyn and learn about Brooklyn's haunted history and true crime. So they are currently off the road. They are social distancing. They're chasing ghosts, but they also have gift cards available for when they reopen, which hopefully is soon. As we're recording this, hopefully we're getting close to them being able to reopen. So be sure to check out madamomorbid.com or give them a follow at Madame Morbid NYC to support your local ghost tour and our official haunted tour. And by the way, their answer is yes. Brooklyn is haunted. And we are back again. We're ready to get weird, ready to get spooky. I'm going to ask you to picture, if you will,
Okay,
travel
close my
back in
eyes.
time. Well, April 6th, 1967. Now, I have to say,
I wasn't alive.
no, but you're picturing it, if you will. You're
Okay.
traveling back in time. But so we are going back to Florida. We've done a couple Florida episodes, but what can I say? Florida's weird. So it's and also let me just say for everyone out there that when we come up with these topics, it's great, but then we have to actually come up with the stories surrounding some of the topics, and that sometimes gets tricky, especially when you're looking for something that has enough meat on the bones
Yeah.
to support like a full story, and as opposed to like, here's something that happened in Topeka. Weird things happen, and then that's the end of the story. We gotta support this podcast in order to get Tushy to give us money. Anyhow,
Yep.
Crestview Elementary School in Opelika, Florida. Opelika, that's definitely like a fun word to say. It's close to Miami-Dade areas. So April 6, 1967. It's in the morning, during morning recess time. Fourth grade student Jonathan is outside. Now the teachers are rounding up the kids, trying to get them inside for the school day or go back to school. Jonathan's outside, and he notices hovering over the schoolyard a strange object.
Oh my
Now
God.
this was a little bit further away, but still very close enough that he could see details. It was round, disc-shaped, and it appeared to spin in the air, but not a chaotic spin, something that was a controlled spin. So a lot of the kids were already inside. Jonathan's still looking up, and his teacher, Mr. Robert Apfel, goes to retrieve him. Jonathan, come on, Jonathan, it's time to go. Like, he's a straggler. Let's go, dude. Got to get back for the lessons. Well, Jonathan is enthralled by whatever he's seen in the sky, and Mr. Apfel walks over, and Jonathan points to in the sky and says, "What is that?" The teacher looks up, and they also sees this metallic
Mhm.
craft overhead. Very odd. Okay, but you know what? I think it's pretty normal for a lot of us out there. Maybe we experience something weird, but we still have to go about our day. And then you just sort of put it in the back of your mind sometimes. Maybe even
So
forget
he
about it.
okay, pause. So this teacher sees something spinning over the schoolyard and just walks away, doesn't do anything about it?
Well, it brings Jonathan inside, but
Okay, well
it's
like
odd.
call the cops.
Well, you know, I think it disappears, but
Ah,
still, yeah, it's something odd. But you still have to. Plus, you have a kid. You don't want to start freaking out in front of the kid. Anyhow, they go about
that's
their
true. You
day.
have to seem cool with children.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I just try to seem cool all the time, but it rarely works. Anyhow,
Keyword try.
try. Go to April 7th, the next day, 1967. So Jonathan again. Jonathan gets a lot of billing in this story. In the Hollywood movie, he would definitely be cast by some like Disney
Important
Channel
kid. Yeah,
kid.
yeah.
Yeah. Anyhow, and Mr. Apfel, which we'll just say looks like I don't know, Paul
Paul
Rudd.
Rudd.
Yeah.
Wait, did we both say Paul Rudd at the same time, or did you hear me first?
No, I said it first, and
No, I said
well,
it first. Ugh,
no, I
who
said it
doesn't
for
love Paul Rudd?
well, you know, he's ageless and America's sweetheart. Anyhow,
Yeah.
Jonathan is in Mr. Apfel's class, and Jonathan notices through the window, and then so do other students, not just one craft, but three crafts in the air. So there is once again this round disc-shaped craft, and it's closer now. Maybe even just yards or a couple hundred yards away. But then they notice two other cigar-shaped objects, or sort of spiral objects. Now that's a pretty common report amongst UFO
Mhm.
reports, the disc shapes and the cigar shaped. So they see these three objects closer now than what they saw than what Jonathan Mr. Apfel saw the day before. Some of the reports said that it almost looked like they were acting as escorts, the two cigar shaped acting as escorts to the other disc
Mm.
shaped craft. Later on, I will say someone else in the report said they only saw one cigar shaped and the disc shaped. But other reports say it was two cigar shaped crafts and the disc shaped. Anyhow, all three objects vanish, maybe about 30 seconds. Now the
Shoot.
kids, imagine the scene. The kids are just like, "Whoa!" And they take to the yard. They
Yeah.
go outside. And as all these kids are running outside, this circular object returns. Now this saucer-shaped object, it's very clear in view at this moment and even closer. It's a rotating disc. Later on, according to, I believe, Project Blue Book, some of the and Project Blue Book said that it was reported as being white with a red light that blinked once. So this disc began to move, and actually, and this is kind of cool and dramatic. So it's moving around, and at one point it seems to blast off into the trees near the schoolyard. This is how close it is. Blast into the launch at these trees. However, the trees remain undamaged, undisturbed. It's almost like it just, instead of crashing into them, which would also just send branches and leaves and
Yeah.
everything all over the place, it just almost vanished into these trees, like a
Hmm.
almost like a portal even had opened up.
Yeah,
Then
yeah.
it returns again and moves about again, and just imagine the scene on this yard. And also, let's say these are kids that are out in this yard, but there's also teachers. So everybody's out there looking at this thing. So just imagine these gasps from the kids, probably excitement, probably some fear, teachers trying to calm them down, but also not knowing what to calm them down from, and also themselves being astounded by what they're seeing in the sky, because this is not a normal day. So it returns again as if it appears out of the trees. And again, there doesn't seem to be any damage or disturbance or anything.
Hmm.
And then after several seconds, the object just vanishes in a flash of light. Mr. Apfel, according to what he told the National Investigations National Investigations Community on Aerial Phenomena, said, quote, "It was a flying saucer."
Dang.
Virginia Martin,
He says it.
pretty well. He wasn't hedging his bets. He was
Paul
very
Rudd.
direct.
He's direct.
Virginia Martin and Marion Waters, teachers, I believe 6th grade teachers at the school, agreed. Andy Cohen, not the Bravo
That's what
host,
I was
but
gonna say.
no, I bet
Shoot.
he would buy. I bet he's into it. I bet he's into aliens and the paranormal, but no, I'm guessing he wasn't born yet. Well, maybe he was born, but he was probably a little kid. Anyhow, Andy Cohen reported to Air Force investigators, quote, "They looked like long cigars. They were flying apart one at a time. Some of the girls got hysterical when they saw them," which I'm kind of calling some misogyny on Andy
Totally.
Cohen
Eye
there,
roll.
or at least chauvinistic.
Oh my God, so rude. It was like the dentist I went to last week. We don't need any more of that energy.
No, we don't. Andy Cohen, that's not the Bravo
Yeah.
host.
Bravo Andy Cohen doesn't want
But
any of that.
no, Bravo Andy Cohen would disapprove of UFO Andy
Yes.
Cohen. So these UFO sightings were not just limited to the children and teachers at the Crestview School in Opelika. Mrs. Mary Tresser called the Miami Herald and inquired about strange sightings, and she went on to reveal that she had been out in the yard and glanced in the direction of the elementary school and saw this oval object with red lights just over the trees. Now, I also want to read, and this is a little bit of a long quote, but I'll just go ahead and say that this report this did emerge in the newspapers, Miami News, Miami Herald, but then it just sort of went away as far as a news story goes. However, over time, certain people have come forward to talk more about this. Now, this is a report that was registered with the National UFO Reporting Center, and this report was posted in 2011, so quite a long time after the 67 experience. But
Jeez.
I'm going to read this quote. "I was in 6th grade at Crestview Elementary School in Miami. During recess in April 1967, I and hundreds of other students from Crestview and a few teachers witnessed 3 oval-shaped objects coming through a few clouds on a mostly clear day directly over our heads. Our teachers gathered our class into a line. We watched as the 2 smaller of the 3 oval objects appeared to be dancing around the larger oval-shaped object coming down towards us. The larger object seemed to be the size of a cruise ship, but its shape was oval and cigar-shaped and shiny metal-like. I saw the large object land in a field near our school. I did not see where the other 2 objects went. What seemed like hours before long, we were told to go home. I was one of the students who rode our bikes to the landing area, not far from our school." So this
Fearless.
person actually went to check it out. "We turned over a there's a typo, a bush or berm, I don't know what that means, and found a field of weeds and grass that appeared to be charred and smashed into an oval shaped and seemed to be the size of a large boat. There was no object there, but the remains of something that had recently been lying there." Now, so that's a unquote. That's a direct quote from
Wow.
someone
One of
that
the
claimed to be an
kids.
eyewitness. And then, so many children, according to a lot of reports, started to remember a military presence around the school. And this is by the afternoon of the second sighting. 3 of the teachers were interviewed privately, and some of the investigators spoke with the children themselves. The official word was that the military was there and that there was actually 3 low hovering helicopters and they weren't mysterious objects, and that the children must have been mistaken in what they claim to have seen. And let's go back to that Newfork witness who said, quote, "Before long, men in uniforms and news press started to interview kids. I listened to a little boy who had the same accounting as me. The following day, the Miami Herald, this is interesting, following day, the Miami Herald told the story and said it was helicopters on maneuvers from the nearby Homestead Air Force Base. I knew otherwise, but understand now that they had to state that to avoid mass hysteria," unquote. So it sounds like the word was, so the Air Force announced that these unknown observations were either misidentified military flares or that they were these helicopters, and that was the finding of Project Blue Book as well. Now, approximately 200 school children and teachers saw this, and what I find so fascinating is that yes, this school was near the Miami-Dade Air Force Base,
Mm.
or Homestead Air Force Base, which also means that this is a community, and this would apply to Mrs. Mary Trosser as well. They know what military aviation looks like. They know what military
Yeah, that's
aircraft
what
looks
I'm
like.
thinking. Yeah.
So it's really hard to really justify or believe that explanation. And this is also in line with a lot of other UFO sightings in the Miami area and South Florida during this time, enough to call it a UFO flap, which is when, there's UFO activity. And now this is a lesser known case in UFO lore. This is not one of the big ones, or it's not known as one of the big ones, but so many sightings of this is interesting, and there are similarities to other famous UFO sighting cases at school, such as the 1966, just a year earlier,
Yeah.
Westall school encounter, and that was in Australia. And
Mm.
what is interesting is that there's actually a lot of cases that have a lot of sightings that have been reported at schools.
Hmm.
There's a lot in Scotland actually, which is interesting.
What are the
But
aliens trying to do?
well, I mean, I think that's
Learn?
an interesting question. So let's say they are extraterrestrial. Something that I was thinking about. So 67, some of the Glasgow one, 66 was the Westall one. There was one in 1952 in Glasgow, 1977 in Wales. There was 1948, I think that was also Scotland, the Greenock one, Aberdeen, Scotland. So a lot of these throughout 60s and 70s, and like I said, one in 48, which is early, and then one in 67 as well in the Isle of Wight, so over in the UK as well. So something I thought about with this is that, so 67, so that's 53 years ago. If those students were, let's say, I don't know, 10 years old at the time, and now they're in their 60s, it almost makes you wonder, could these sightings have been one to test how people would react, specifically children, but maybe even on some level lay the groundwork for some reappearance later on when
Yeah.
many of these students would still be alive today,
Yeah.
to see, like, okay, well, who knows, maybe if we lay that groundwork now and then come back later, maybe that's influencing how that response would be later. I don't know.
Yeah. I
Or
think
maybe
that's
to
a good
see what
theory.
kids would think, would the kids freak out? Because I think kids would probably be more likely to, yes, maybe be scared, but also embrace
Mm-hmm.
this potential thing.
Yeah.
So it's pretty fascinating stuff. And
Yeah.
a good day at school. I just got to say, like, that's a
I
cool
mean,
day.
can you imagine? That's so cool.
So, that's and it probably gets you out of homework. Yeah, I think you could ride on that a little bit. Sorry, I didn't do my homework. UFO
Totes.
sighting. Sorry, I sucked at the spelling quiz, but UFO outside. You guys remember that, right?
Yeah.
Just a little bit scarred by that. So,
Yeah.
so
If any
I
of our listeners or anyone our listeners know have had things that they think are alien encounters, please email us. I want to know.
I want to know as well. So with
Yeah.
that said, that's a couple stories of weirdness and crime and mayhem at schools. But before we get out of here, let's check in with some paranormal pop culture recommendations. What are you into?
Yeah, so I started listening to this incredibly good podcast called This Is Actually Happening. It's been around for a while, so what's interesting is they might have stories of someone who have experienced a UFO. I haven't looked, but it's stories told by the real people that happened to them. So, for example, one is a guy who's part of an online community. I'm not sure, he doesn't say what it is. I'm not sure. Maybe it's Reddit or something, but he is active in this community and then becomes a moderator. And then something happens on this site and it has him just kind of questioning his own ethics. And so he talks through that. Another one is that a woman was assaulted. She survived it, but she was assaulted on her way to work. And then the assault is only a couple of minutes, but the majority of the episode is her talking about the aftermath and how people spoke to her and how she would have liked to be spoken to. And it's just very interesting for me to hear like how people who have gone through tragedy would want to be treated, because so often something happens and you don't know what to say to somebody, but it's so interesting hearing it told in their own words. It's a good way to kind of educate ourselves on how to, you know, change our behaviors. It's very good.
I'll check that out. I have heard of that one, but I don't know if I've actually listened in on that yet. But well, my recommendations is I'll give two for you, Britt.
Oh,
That
great.
there's some good documentary series happening right now. One's on Showtime called Love Fraud,
I've heard of
and
this.
yeah, it's basically it's about a bounty hunter, and it's it's sort of this hunt for this alleged con man who really would just take women and take family members for a ride. And so I think it'd be something that you would be into.
Totally.
Not that you wanna, not that you're an aspiring con person, but yeah, I
I
think
like
you
those
would.
stories.
But the other one, well, I guess the other one is HBO. There's The Vow, which
Just finished it today.
yeah. So that's a good one. But the one
Yeah.
I was actually going to recommend, there's a lot of good stuff out there. But the one I was going to recommend is The Boys season 2 on Amazon Prime, and it's based on the comic book. And there was also the first season, and it's a superhero show, but it's very violent, very gory, and it's sort of what life would probably be like if there really were superheroes in the 21st century and the age of social media and mega corporations, and the notion is that superheroes are essentially owned by this company, and they do brand deals and reality TV and fragrance tie-ins and things like that, but they're also pretty horrible people. And it's satire, but this season is perhaps, I think it's even better than the first season because it dips into sort of this darker side, I think, of American culture, of how people can be really willing to give in to fascist, racist ideas
Mm.
and notions when presented by sort of these powerful, charismatic characters, and how we just may not like the word fascism and racism, and we may not like throwing around the word Nazis, but some of the ideas are a little too readily embraced by
Yep.
some parts of our citizenry. So it's still, but it's also funny and gory and super violent and all of those things. It just also has this subtext to it that makes it a little bit more fascinating. So The Boys season 2, Amazon Prime, check it out. Also, the the acting on it is just really great. It's really compelling characters that you get to spend a lot of time with. So that said, I think school's out. I mean, school's back in session, but school's out. And also, we're recording this after the official, or not the official, but ceremonial end of summer, of Labor Day, just right
Yeah.
before, which kind of makes me sad. But summer lives on
I know.
because
Pack away your white pants.
I will. I don't have any white pants, but I will not pack away my tiki shirts because I wear those things suckers all year long. So, summer lives on with me. So school's out, but summer lives on, or school's back in session. I don't know. It was schools. Things are weird. That was the end of the podcast. I'm done.
If you like NightMerica, please consider supporting us at patreon.com/NightMerica and consider leaving us a review on Apple Podcasts. Give us a follow on social media and share this with your friends.
And if you'd like to share your paranormal stories or even seek paranormal advice, which is for entertainment purposes only, email nightmericashow@gmail.com.